Welcome, world, to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. I am Reverend Sandy Rogers, and as the creator of this historic event, it is my pleasure to welcome you. We come together to bring you this historic event. We have practitioners, holistic practitioners, we have medical doctors, we have spiritual individuals. This event is so lovingly dedicated to my mother, Mrs. Barbara Dean Brown. And my mother taught me like 40 plus years ago about the importance and the meaning behind herbs. And she would always say, we don't know what they putting in those pills, so you better not, get hooked on prescription drugs. And so we listened to Mom, but not all of us paid attention. My sister, bless her heart, was diagnosed recently thereafter with asthma, and she was prescribed prednisone, which is a very powerful steroid. And my sister actually got hooked on steroids like someone out on the street kind of hooked, like on heroin or crack or something like that. And so my mom and my sister are both on the other side, living in the other dimension, but they're upholding me, and this is dedicated to their memory. So we don't want to come and make you change your mind about what you're doing. We just want to provide information to you, something different, so that you have options to choose from, so that you're not stuck. Because the environment that we now live in, the fast foods, the toxins in the air that we breathe and in the water that we drink, and the processed foods, and all of that is causing havoc on this precious body temple. So God created our bodies to heal themselves, but they can only heal themselves when they're fed and they're nourished and they're stress-free. And so the 60 or so or more experts that we have are bringing you this worldwide wellness movement in an attempt to share their testimonies and their information with you. So we have from age 14 on up. I don't even know what the oldest age is. I think 88 or something. So you see, that's a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing you. And so we hope that you come and that you get all the knowledge that you need to affect a positive change on your life, and share this with others. It's free, it's online, and so we're just so thankful that you decided to be a part of our listening community, the viewing community, and we certainly appreciate you for giving us your time of day and your energy and your efforts to being with us and to being a part of this historic event. We have pulled together people of color for you, by you, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that we too, melanated people with color, can enjoy, practice, and participate in some of these modalities that others have been doing for centuries, and that is pretty new to our community. So we talk about Qigong, we talk about meditation, yoga, spiritual work from a different perspective than religion. So we talk about the spirituality aspect. We talk about abuse in the families. We talk about all kinds of subjects because we know that in our communities there are layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff that we never talk about that's causing a negative effect on our bodies and its healing process. So we address it, whatever it is, and we hope that you will benefit from the many experts that we have, and that you walk away with lots of knowledge and lots of new information, and that you become fully empowered to share information with others. So thank you for being with us. We love you and we bless you, and we look forward to doing this again. But thanks for being here with the first one. We appreciate you.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
tonight we have with us the faith-filled, energetic, compassionate Gill Carmody. Now with Gill, and I want to say this as an introduction, I met her as she was doing Qigong. And as a master practitioner in Qigong, she was always so zen-like and so peaceful, and she taught the movements. But in getting to know Gill, her life is so much more than Qigong, and so that's where we're going to come from. But first, let me introduce, or have Gill to introduce herself to you in the manner that she would like to. So Gill, would you tell us who you are?
Well, the first thing I would say is I'm not a master of anything. I'm on the path. I have my place on the path. There are people that are so much more experienced than I am, but I find my place and I just go with that. I grew up in Scotland. I spent most of my life in Scotland and then had a spell in Italy before going back to Scotland and then coming back to the States. So here I am on the unwinding path, and who knows, this is me, and let's chat.
Okay, let's do it. So Gill has written a book, and it was for her family, for her nieces and nephews, to share a part of herself with them, and just an excellent book. I was impressed because she made this trip by herself with just a backpack on, and she met all these beautiful souls. And so in discussing the story with her, I found out just how much she's lived her whole life in faith. And so we want to kind of go through, perhaps travel down that road with Gill for a minute. So Gill, when did this adventurous part of you, when did it surface?
Oh, I know that as a kid I always had two things in my favor. I always had something I was really passionate about, and I always had the dedication and the willingness to practice. And so I found that with passion for anything and putting in practice, then that's pretty much all I need. I won't say it's all everybody needs, but I know that it's all that I need, and all that I needed as a child growing up, and really all I need as an adult too. So my real passion as a kid was what you call soccer. We called it football, but it was soccer for me. And I asked my parents, when did I start kicking football? And they said, well, when you could start walking. And so it was a great thing just to have something that I loved. And the only problem, and maybe the great divine was having a bit of a joke, because I happened to have that passion for a sport that really was not accepted for females. So I grew up in a country where soccer was a man's game, and really there wasn't much opportunity, but I don't know, it didn't prevent me. I still carried on playing, and then one day something magical happened. I was watching my brother's team play, and they had an organised league, and they were playing under 11 years of age, and they needed an extra player, and this was my opportunity. And so the coach said, do you want to play for us today? I said, yeah, of course. So I went on, and one of the things that I found as a girl growing up and playing in a boys' team, in order to be accepted, just accepted, I had to prove myself worthy and prove myself better. And that kind of fueled my passion. That, it was just another thing for me to say, great, this is good, this is fuel for me, I'm going to use it that way. And so I got to play in the game, and boy, they were surprised. They suddenly realised that, oh my goodness, here's someone who's much better than all of the boys. And at the end of the game, they said, look, will you sign for us and play for us till the end of the year? So, this is me. It was like winning the lottery. It was my absolute dream come true. So I played at the end of the year, and I kind of stood out not because I was just female, but really because I was better than a lot of the boys on the team. So at the end of the year, when they had this big celebration and who was going to be voted the best player, who was going to be winning the prize for the top goal scorer, it was Gill Carmody at this time. So I won a lot of awards. And then, they put this tiny little article in the local newspaper, and it said, oh, this was a really good year for the team, and look what happened, and this female won this, and this. And within about a week, my world fell apart. It fell apart because I then got a letter from the Football Federation, the governing body of soccer in Scotland, and they said, oh, we didn't realise you were female. You're now officially banned from playing soccer. And I just cried. I mean, I was so devastated. I didn't understand it. I said, look, I'm not doing any harm. I'm just playing a game that I love, and no one's getting hurt by it. It's just why I was 11 and I didn't know why. And then this was 1976, and the Sex Discrimination Act had just come out in the UK. And so, the media, a lot of the paparazzi, thank goodness there wasn't the internet, thank goodness there was no Twitter or Facebook at the time. But, I went to school and my teacher said, oh, I'm sorry you got banned from playing football. And I said, how do you know? And she said, well, have you not seen the newspapers and the billboards? And suddenly there was a vulnerability. And the disappointing thing was, I then received a letter that said it was hate mail. It was the start of hate mail, and it was things saying, "Oh, we're so glad that you were banned. This is a man's game, and you should be learning how to wash dishes and cook food and everything else." And I grew up. I realised that okay, I'm 11, but I'm getting some messages here that are pretty strong, and actually, as an 11-year-old, I had that fighting spirit that was, I'll show you. It's like, I'm still going to do it. And so I managed somehow to find a way there was a female team, and they said, come and play with us. It just so happened that the youngest person on the team was 21. And the ages range from 21 to about 35. And when you're like this high and 11 going on 12, it's a big step. But I still had the passion, I still wanted to play, and I still carried on playing, and even, I kind of set a couple of records for achievements and things. But then, football left me. It left me for a while, and I went in different directions. I found myself pretty much living a life that I knew that my parents wanted for me. I knew they wanted me settled in maybe an office job, maybe Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, start putting money into a pension fund. And I was young, and I really, really didn't know, and I just felt the desire to think, I don't even know who I am anymore, I don't know myself. And that set me off on a path of just kind of seeking and thinking, okay, what is it? What is life about? What am I about? Who am I? What am I about? And so I packed a rucksack. This was, I think I was about 21 years old. I left my really steady job, left everything in Scotland, and I said to my parents, I'm going off to Europe. And I went off, and I ended up selling hamburgers in a place in Denmark, and living in a tent, and being on my own. But I learned more in probably 4 weeks of being on my own than I'd ever learned in the 21 years on planet Earth. I learned so much about myself in silence. Who was I? What was I like when I was faced with my own silence? What was I like when I was away from all of my familiar territory? What was I like when I was engaging with foreign people? Because growing up in Scotland, it was fairly sheltered in, the 80s and things like that. So, that was incredible. And I found myself just saying, okay, I'm going to go around Europe. I'm going to hitchhike my way. And I just, when people say to me, were you not scared? Did you not have a lot of fear? I think part of it would have been my own naivety at the time, but another part was trust. I had a tremendous amount of trust, and I still do. I still have a lot of trust. And even though I didn't know where I was going, I would wake up and not know which direction. I'd look at a map and think, let's go here. And one day I decided, I was in Spain, I wanted to go to Greece, and I just set out with my thumb and hitchhiked my way to Greece, and still trusting in humanity, trusting that, and I think that's beautiful. I mean, it was wonderful to feel that. And so, you know, I went on all the ways, and it just set off this absolute passion for me to just keep moving, keep discovering, keep meeting other people, and all the time parts of me were being revealed as well. And so I ended up, you know, after a few months, I thought, okay, this is I've learned a lot, I'm going to go back to Scotland, but then I still had this desire to travel. Now travel was my great passion. This is what I wanted to do. And, you know, one day I just said, I would like to go to Israel. I didn't know why. You know, there was nothing that, I didn't have links or anything, but I really wanted to go. So one girl that I'd met in Denmark the year before, we remained pen friends, and so I said, I want to go there, and she said, I'll meet you. Now, whether or not she was going to be there, I don't know, but I turned up in Tel Aviv, and she was there. And we ended up, we worked in a youth hostel, and then we started to travel through Jerusalem, learning this was the best geography, the best history lesson I could have ever dreamed of. I would fall asleep in history in school, in class. It was just heavy subject. I didn't really like it. It didn't inspire me. When I was living it, when I was going to the places, learning on site, it was a new world for me. So we did this, and then one day when we got to the south of Israel, we said, what will we do? And we said, toss a coin. And the coin said, go into the desert. And we went into the Sinai desert, and we came across a tribe of Bedouins, and they welcomed us as guests, and we stayed, I think, for probably about 6 weeks, and all we had to do was walk the camels, get some water from the well, and just really sit around in community. And I think it's one of the most beautiful experiences of my whole entire life. We didn't do anything. We were just being. And we were just being in that community. I can't even remember what language was spoken, but I understood them and they understood me. And we would, you know, just play backgammon. Eating was a great ritual, just everybody in the chief's tent and sitting around and sharing food, sharing stories, sharing just our presence. Simple. It was the most simple existence, but it touched me deeply. I would never ever forget it. But what's particularly interesting about that part is one of the Bedouins was going up to Egypt and said, do you want to go to Egypt? Would you like to see Cairo? And so me and my friends said, of course, let's go. So we went to Cairo, and they had some family there, and they let us meet their family, and so everything was just incredible. I went back to Scotland. I decided that's it. I've done my traveling. I'm going back into sport, and I'm going to do physical education at college. And I started to study physical education and sports coaching, and one part was soccer. I had to start coaching and teaching soccer, and my passion for the game just reignited. And this was me now about 23, 24. And I want to start playing. And if there's a possibility, I don't know what's going to happen, and I got invited to play a tournament in Amsterdam. And we had one day off. We were in the city of Amsterdam, me and my colleagues from the team, and then we were just sitting, daydreaming, and suddenly I turned around and I saw a person, and it was the Bedouin. from the desert. And at that particular tournament, there happened to be an Italian scout for a team. They offered me the opportunity to go to Italy for a trial to become a professional soccer player. And that was just incredible, the links and how everything was just mapped out. And you know, I didn't know I was going to end up there, but I just was being led and I was willing to go. And so when I got to Italy, it turned out that they were only allowed one foreign player per team. And so the foreign player that came had to make the difference. They had to be the one that kind of stood out and made a bit of a difference to the team. And really, for me, it's the absolute and coming full circle, because that was the equivalent of me and the boys' team. I had to prove myself there. So when I had to do it in Italy, I knew that game. I knew how to do that. And I had just glorious years of playing soccer at my highest level. Fantastic, just memories, opportunities. And so, yeah, I that was the great discovery. But then I have, I'm just always lost or found. That's it. It's sometimes I'm absolutely found, and that's what happened there. And then sometimes I get absolutely lost. It just happens that way. And you know, my time of being lost was after football, when you know, I was in a relationship with a person, believed that this was going to be, you know, the one for me and everything else. 10 years together, and then you know, 5 years of it weren't that good. And I knew that it didn't feel right, but I stayed. I stayed for probably a host of reasons, maybe not even admitting the truth to myself, but just feeling that I'm hanging on because this is pretty much all I've got. It felt like coming off of football, it was like, okay, now I've just hit the bottom again. It's like, oh, now who am I if I'm not this soccer player? What identity do I have? And I was always sort of wrapped up in that. And that's really what inspired me for the little booklet that I wrote, because this was my I called it the soul's pathway to grace, because it was the walk. I chose to walk the Camino de Santiago, which is the way of St. James. It's a walk in Spain. After the death of Christ, when the apostles came out to preach Christianity, St. James took the route through France and northern Spain, and so he had lots of followers he set up, and it's become this pilgrimage, and people walk it and have been walking it for centuries. Now, I wasn't looking for anything spiritual, anything religious. I wanted a good hike. I wanted something that would remind me, hey, you're living. Come on, get moving, start doing something. And so once again, and now I'm in my 40s, I put the rucksack on and I turn up in the middle of a little town in Spain, not a clue where to go, what to do, but just having the ultimate faith of just go, it'll be okay. And so I started to walk, and as I started to walk, it was late in the day, and I kept turning around and I kept looking at civilization getting further and further away from me, and I'm going further into the mountains and the wilderness and thinking, I feel vulnerable. There's a huge vulnerability that comes with that. What can you do? You have to face it. You just keep going, just keep facing it. And then I met at the first place, I met this young man, and I said, look, do you know where I can stay? And he said, yeah, there's a cattle shed. You stay here, I'll stay with you. And then suddenly, all of my fears were coming up again, and all of the things that I was battling, like my lack of trust in relationship, my lack of trust in men because of just the disappointment that come and everything was suddenly, I had no option. I'm there, I have to live it. And it turned out he was the most pleasant person. He became my walking companion for a while, and I discovered that all along the way people would come and go, and that was I got some amazing life lessons that people would always come and go. And then the other thing that was particularly interesting for that walk was, as I carried on, one day I suddenly became overwhelmed with emotion. And I didn't know where it was coming from, what was happening, but it was like, I started to cry. And then I walked around the corner and I saw this statue, and I saw a nun praying in front of the statue, and I knew that I had felt her presence way back then. And it was just a moment of watching reverence, watching that beauty of someone deep in their own faith, and just, I wouldn't even say it was tempting. I wasn't tempted to take a picture. A lot of people, especially now, would just, I want a picture, I want to put it on Facebook. I wanted to respect the moment. I wanted to feel it with her. And then my emotion calmed down, and I moved on, and I got to my next point. And at the next point, I met this young man from Spain, and I was thinking, I know him. I know him. Obviously, I didn't know him, but there was a feeling, and I think that feeling is in the Celtic wisdom. It's the anam cara. It's the friendship, in the sense of belonging that comes when you meet a soul friend, when you know that there's always been a connection with other people. And his point was that he said, I was so touched. I met this nun and I prayed with this nun for a long time that day, and so suddenly everything is starting to make sense, and it's deepening my own faith. It's deepening my own faith, and I'm always going into the unknown, but I just want to do it. I just want to keep going with it. And so the walk carried on and everything else, and it was beautiful. I learned, like I say, so many lessons on it. But one thing, once again, if you remember the Bedouin, when he turned up out of the blue, at the end of the Camino, which incidentally is about 500 miles, I walked 150. I had 10 days. I had to make tracks. And I was contemplating, will I take a train back to the place where I have to get the flight home, or will I take a bus ride? And it was going to be about 10 hours on the bus. And I thought about it, and I chose the bus. And so we set off on the bus journey. I was ready just to rest. And the driver said, we have to make a stop just for 2 passengers. And he made his stop, and who got on the bus? The nun. And I drifted off to sleep with absolute contentment and knowing that I had been changed by that pilgrimage. I'd been changed, and I'm constantly being changed. And that's the beauty of coming back even to Qigong, is that's what I like about it. It teaches us about transformation. Everything's transforming. Every day turns into night. Our breath rises and falls, it comes and goes, and there's always this movement, and there's always the opportunity. It's our awareness. It's not special, and believe me, I am no means a master of Qigong. I've been studying for 20 years. I consider myself a beginner, but it's such a beautiful way to live, and that's truly, I could travel all I want, but I find myself when I do Qigong as well. And that's pretty much most of my story.
But it's such a wonderful lesson that could be applied to stepping out, like in a new career, or leaving your hometown where you grew up because you like it on the other side of the world, and so those acts of faith, what you exhibited, can be applied to all of that. And there was so much of you, like you said, that you learned in those processes. I think that's such a powerful story.
I think one of the things that hinders us more than anything is expectation. we want to know the end result. Tell me what the end result is going to be, and then I'll decide if I'm going to do it.
Good point.
If I don't know what the end result is, then the chances are I'm probably not going to do it. I'll just make an excuse, and there's always going to be a million excuses to do it. But really, all we're doing is we're undermining ourselves. We're not taking the opportunity. And so what if it doesn't work? So what if we don't know? And really, they're both the same. They're failure or success. It's yin and yang. It's both things. We're always going to have, even my football, I had moments where I was described as someone with magical feet, and then I was described as someone with two left feet. But they're just labels. But it's still us. It's still us at the end of the day, and it's us being willing to be us. Just be willing. Yeah, I mean, I still meet all of my vulnerabilities. I still meet some of my fears. And I will always meet them. It's just the way it is. But they become less intimidating. And I keep just having faith on the path of I'm just living.
And you get the confirmation with picking up the nun on the bus, right?
Yeah. And then when it's like, okay, someone's already mapped this out, and I'm just joining the dots now, and I'm just seeing a picture emerging, and that truly is, that's heartening. That gives a lot of heart to. And one of the things in the book that I said as well is that I came across some part of the journey when I was getting quite scared, and all I could see was black ravens flying above my head, and I'm thinking, okay, this is a sign, this is not good, they're black ravens, and I didn't know anything about perhaps the spirit animal or anything, and I'm thinking, oh, this is not a good sign. And later on, I came to realise that ravens are actually wonderfully symbolic and just about showing us the path of ahead and everything else. But some things we just don't know, and it's in hindsight, it's good. And maybe had I known that, it would have been easier. But then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to live through the fear of it. That's
key. I like that. I like how you said that. Living through the fear of it. There's so much courage in that. And the silence. You talked earlier about being in the silence, and you learn more about yourself. Was it 4 weeks? Then you had your whole first 21 years of life. Especially in this day and age with noise all the time and the electronics, the technology, we're always involved in something, doing something. But just to be still and be in the silence, that is such an empowering experience. But too few of us will take the opportunity to do that.
I think it's back, when people see the symbol for Qigong or Tai Chi, actually, it's the Tai Chi symbol, yin and yang. What they don't forget is the word and, because they either want all good, no bad, or all action, no silence. It's not yin or yang. It's both. And it has to be both. There's nothing in nature that doesn't have both of these dynamics working. But we think we can control it, and we're part of nature too, and we have to find that balance. Of course you can have all action, lots of information, that's great, and keep building that, that's beautiful, but don't leave the other one behind, don't leave the silence behind. Just make sure that you're having a healthy dose of that too, so that you have the dynamic and the play of both of them that are going to happen. And silence for a lot of people is a scary place. They don't want to go there, they don't want to meet themselves.
Yes.
Yes.
But you're you. Who are you if you're not you?
Right.
At the end of the Camino, you meet with someone and they ask you about your journey, and because they want to give you what we call a Compostela, an achievement certificate, just to say that you've walked this path. And they'd said to me, well, why were you walking it, and what was your experience about, and everything else? And I just said I just wanted a good hike, really. But when I told them some of the things that had been revealed to me and everything else, and they said, we're going to give you this based on your faith in the unknown. It was so I have, and I think that's what I have, is faith in the unknown. And even with my practice with Tai Chi, I just keep doing it. I don't do it because I think it's going to take me from here to there. I don't know where it's going to take me. I don't know where anything's going to take me, but I'm developing faith with it. That's what faith is for me. Practice. This is the only word we need to know. If you want to be kind, practice. If you want to be generous, practice. If you want to be adventurous, practice. If you want to do anything, practice.